So imagine the family that lived here had to share their house with hundreds of German soldiers. It was just behind here, overlooking the Gold Beach, which is where my great-uncle actually landed on D-Day +4.
We figured out that both our great-uncles were fighting in Normandy. However, it wasn't on the same side.
In this episode, we turn the clock back 80 years. Normandy is occupied by Nazi Germany, and life is harsh. The Germans have imposed strict rationing. Food shortages were commonplace. People have to queue for hours for basic necessities like bread and coal. Large houses, farms and chateaus were confiscated to house German troops, causing further disruption and hardship for the French citizens. This was a time of great uncertainty and fear, as the threat of violence was ever present and the future unclear. But at the 6th of June, Allied forces launched the largest seaborne invasion in history. A brutal but essential attack along a 50-mile stretch of heavily fortified French coastline, which signaled the beginning of the end of Nazi Germany.
In this episode, we want to remember the D-Day landing as a testament to the power of Allied cooperation, but also remember all those who sacrificed their lives for the values of freedom and democracy. But we also want to find out what happened to the people who lived here at the chateau, what happened to our village, and to the building itself, because as you will see, there were some strong ties to the D-Day landing.
As soon as Nazi Germany invaded France, they were looking for large properties where all of the troops could be based, and a lot of the chateaus and manor houses were taken over and requisitioned. And our chateau was also one of those properties. So imagine the family that lived here had to share their house with hundreds of German soldiers. We know that they were relatively respectful, actually, and the only major thing that happened was that they were moving around a lot of the furniture. They obviously needed to create space where they could put beds for the soldiers. The only way of heating the rooms was using the open fires. That meant that they were cutting wood in the chateau, and unfortunately, like we can see here, the slabs of marble got damaged because the soldiers were constantly chopping wood on the marble itself just to keep the fires going and keeping the rooms warm. So all of the fireplaces here were damaged, and that was why we chose to replace them in the two other salons. We never got round to replacing it in here, and actually we've decided that we are going to keep it like this. We'll make some minor just repairs, but I think it's an important reminder of things that happened here at that time.
For me, it's very difficult to imagine hundreds of field beds here with German soldiers waiting to be deployed and then cutting wood on the fireplaces. 80 years ago, it's not that long ago.
Can you imagine how it must have been for the family to suddenly one day just have, hundreds of soldiers turn up at your door and they're starting to move your furniture and take out all of those belongings of yours and just take over your home. And there's nothing you can do about it. I couldn't imagine having to do that. Okay, forgive the mess that's going on in here. We're stocking all of the stuff for the master suite. I wanted to bring you in here because this is where we were told that above here there's a little cachette where the family...
What is a cachette in English?
Hidey hole, I would guess. I can't think of the term right now. But there is a trapdoor right here. Drop it down.
We see my electrical installation.
We do see your lovely electrical installation. And you will see there's some lovely paper.
And at this time, the previous owner was hiding his hunting rifles up there. He probably had a nice collection. And obviously, the French were not allowed to keep any weapons during the occupation. So I don't know what the punishment would have been for him if they were found, but he must have loved his hunting.
But then, to make things worse, the German commander decided to sleep exactly in this bed, in this alcove. But he never became suspicious, and the father of the family survived.
And by the way, if you're wondering, we did look into this hiding space here when we installed the lights, and unfortunately nothing in there. And another funny story in here, there's a cupboard. And when the previous owners moved out here 5 years ago, when we moved in, they obviously cleaned all their cupboards. And in this cupboard, in the corner, they found an old package of French sugar from the 40s. Sugar was very valuable during the war, and they didn't want the Germans to have it, so they were hiding it, and probably after the war they just forgot about it, so hence the hidden sugar. It seems that the previous owner's mum was really keen on her garden, on the lawn, and so even though the Nazis had occupied the chateau, they were not allowed to walk on the lawn. And there was apparently a big sign, "Don't walk on the lawn." And one day, there was a soldier walking up and down the lawn. She saw him and ran out and complained and told him off. He left the lawn, but a couple of minutes later, another soldier came and said, "Careful, that wasn't just a normal soldier, that was an SS officer, and you should have been careful." I'm sure he was pretty surprised about the courage of this French woman.
We are now going to meet our local mayor. I got in touch with him to find out a little bit more about the history of the village during the war, and especially if there were any villagers who were taking part in the D-Day landings. So we were told by the mayor that this would be the only place that we would likely find somebody that might have any sort of memories from around the Second World War in this village. And it's our local village hall, and apparently on a Thursday afternoon, all of the retired residents, the older generation, meet here to have a game of cards and chat together.
Un soir, vous savez, on avait une petite ferme, et quand on avait une vache en chasse, il fallait l'emmener chez une tante à 3-4 km à Gennevilles. Et les Allemands étaient à la Croix-Rouge, vous connaissez la Croix-Rouge? Et avec maman, elle avait la vache à plater, et puis moi je tapais derrière pour qu'elle court, pour qu'on rentre avant la nuit, parce qu'on avait peur des Allemands. Je me souviens un soir d'être grimpé dans un escalier très haut devant la maison, et puis papa me dit descends là-dedans, et là aussitôt il y a eu un bombardement sur le Teil. Le Teil a été... pendant la guerre, Jacques, tu te souviens, le Teil avait été beaucoup bombardé.
On a subi la guerre, mais sans bouger, c'est ça, on était dans les fermes. Par contre, j'ai vu les Allemands arriver, les canons tirés par les chevaux. Et ils ont réquisitionné les chevaux dans toutes les fermes. Ça avait fait un bruit énorme aussi. Les paysans n'avaient plus rien pour travailler. Il n'y a pas de tracteur à l'époque.
Et les bombardements des Alliés, vous avez des souvenirs?
Ah non, nous on n'a pas été bombardés. Sur le Teil, oui.
Mais on fermait les volets pour pas que notre lumière se voie des avions qui passaient sur la maison. Oui.
Vous avez des souvenirs du château occupé?
Ben oui, quand même, je jouais plus très bien, mais oui. Et puis l'autre château de Patreville aussi.
Oui, les deux châteaux étaient occupés.
Oui.
Ouais. Qui est-ce qui gagne normalement?
Celui qui perd pas.
So that was really sweet. All the men and ladies playing cards in there. Then a couple of years it's going to be me and you, Anna.
Yeah.
But what we learned, I think, is that our village was relatively spared compared to other places in the area. So people here were lucky, apart from the fact that many places were occupied by the Germans. For obvious reasons, this is a very special vlog this week. And as it happens, we collaborate with a very special sponsor for this week's ad, called Notion. Chances are you heard about Notion. I created a Notion account a while ago because I have so many friends who use it all the time and wanted me to join their team spaces. But because I was incredibly busy mapping out my 7-part autobiography, provisionally called Humble Confessions of a Genius Mind and Fertility Symbol, in the wastepipe sector, I never made time to give it a closer look. Until Notion reached out to us and I didn't have an excuse anymore. Now, I'm not pretending I'm a Notion expert. There are hundreds of people out there on YouTube showing you what great things you can do with it. But I think I'm a good example of somebody who's just started using it and already benefits hugely from it. If you never heard about it, Notion is a place where you can write, plan, organize and bring ideas, passions or projects to life. And if you're not working on your own, you will use Notion together with your collaborators, all online, so it doesn't matter where in the world they are, so you can advance and keep everybody updated about the progress of your projects. Today, Anna and I, we have to manage several social media channels. Anna has her workshops. We're working on the launch of a wallpaper, and all these projects are on a shared planning agenda.
I created an additional space called boat purchases, which I keep strictly private because I don't see any benefit in Anna knowing that I spent all the money we make on YouTube on a new set of performance cruising sails. However, there's one thing I share with her, and that's our YouTube planning calendar. So we both know what we have to film, how far we are in the editing process. But the point is, Notion is for everybody. Whether you are a student, a small business owner, or a founder, you will have your specific way of using Notion to be more efficient, more focused, and more inspired. It's also the first time I see AI flawlessly and cleverly integrated in a program. Let's say I want to start a new renovation, a bathroom renovation. So I go here, create a new project, and I ask the AI what I will need for a typical bathroom renovation job. In a couple of seconds, it produces a list of things that are typically needed to renovate a bathroom. It is a starting point, and obviously I have to adapt it, but it's already a list. It has already a lot of things that I would have forgotten. So for me, this is a perfect example how AI can make our lives more easy. As you can see, I'm genuinely enthusiastic about Notion. Keep in mind, if you can think it, you can make it happen with Notion. And I strongly suggest try it for free. The link will be down below, and I hope you guys will be as excited as I about this super tool. Although our village has been relatively unharmed during the D-Day, the landing beaches are only 30 miles from the Chateau. And on the 6th of June is the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landing. And there's going to be thousands of people from all over the world visiting the beaches here and the cemeteries and the museums. And we thought, before the crowds are coming, to show you some of the important places.
We're here at the British War Memorial, which is relatively new. It was built 2 years ago, and it's a beautiful memorial because it brings together the names of over 22,000 soldiers, women and men who lost their lives under British command during the D-Day landings. And it's particularly poignant this year because they've put in a art installation called Standing with the Giants, and it's of 1,475 statues to represent all of those people that lost their lives on the first day of the landing. It was just behind here, overlooking the Gold Beach, which is where my great uncle, Captain Russell Robinson, actually landed on D-Day +4, and he luckily survived, but many of others didn't, and it's a poignant reminder when you see all of these statues here, how many people lost their lives.
He lost his comrades though, didn't he?
He was injured later on D-Day +24, and he was temporarily blinded when either our ammunition or a landmine went off, and a comrade and friend of his that he was walking with was killed. He lost a small part of his finger, and luckily he survived. But yeah, it's really poignant to come here and to realise that we have this connection, and I think so many people have a connection with this place because of that day. There's a beautiful message which is written on the monument itself, and it says, "To us is given the honour of striking a blow for freedom, which will live in history and in the better days that lie ahead. Men will speak with pride of our doings."
When we did our research for this vlog, we figured out that both our great uncles were fighting in Normandy. However, it wasn't on the same side. My great uncle, the brother of my late grandmother, which I unfortunately never met, was killed as a 24-year-old man about a month after the D-Day. He was killed at Saint-Lô, and he was buried here at the cemetery. And neither his mom nor his sister was able to ever visit the cemetery. It was too far, they had no means to travel here. So up to now, no member of our family has ever visited him. But my mom figured out where his grave is. So we're gonna try to find it. And then I picked a rose from our garden. Do you remember the number?
No, you need to look.
And it says that he's here, row number 2, grave number 28. And his name was Josef Platte. And he died 1944 on the 29th of July.
We searched and searched but couldn't find the grave. I spent half an hour on Google to find a name list or something else. Before Anna had the old-fashioned but brilliant idea to inquire offline in the visitor center at the entrance, and they were able to help us.
Here, we'll find it.
Yeah.
You found him.
You know, we might just be the first people ever come here to the grave after 80 years. You realize it would have been technically possible that our granduncles would have met.
Yeah.
Maybe even shot at each other.
I hope you enjoyed this trip down the coast of Normandy and down the memory lane. And if you did so, please consider subscribing. Next time we'll take you to the most famous D-Day site, the Omaha Beach and the American Cemetery. And if you have a personal family story around the D-Day landings, we'd love to read them in the comments.